What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Tuesday watercolor painting video. Special thanks to our model Sadie, who is an art student in Baltimore, who was with me at Karen Warshall's studio on Saturday. So thank you for letting me paint your portrait. Today, we are going to start off vastly different than you saw how I started before. So you see how I'm loading up the brush with some of this reddish color. Hey Hansel Dog, Grace, Giselle, welcome, welcome. Okay, so what you're gonna see is no pencil drawing for the start of this one. So what we're gonna do is we are going to draw with the paint. Now you can see how fluid the watercolor is right now. Now the highlights themselves will not be as bright as the paper. Now she is wearing glasses, but again, I already chose that the glasses will not be as light as the paper. Kind of like with an oil painting, you never really want to have the highlights be straight white. With the watercolor, that can work, and that's more, more of a stylistic choice. But you'll see what we have figured out here. Hey Stephanie, Mark L, welcome, welcome. So I'm using the paint, as you see here, to draw the mask of the face, just a placement of the face. And typically I want to do this in one wash. Now we're doing it in two. Now you see a little piece down here, which is not a big deal. But typically you want to do this in one wash so that you don't have any of the what happened over there. But with a little bit more water, we were able to fix that. So this is going to be the jaw. Neck is going to fit somewhere about here. Like I said, ran out of paint, so this is going to create another little shape like that. And I'm using red, which is kind of more of a burnt sienna. And I can now say that I recommend that palette that I'm using, that pan palette. All right, so now we got the mask of the face. Hey, Susan. Welcome, welcome. Now we can go a little bit over. That's where the ear will fit. Depending on your screen, I'm actually using a different monitor today. So it looks rather light, lighter than I want it to look. So I'm going to adjust that. There you go, so you can somewhat see what I'm doing here. And I'll adjust it as I go. How was everyone's weekend? Next thing we're going to do, which is again vastly different from last time, is we're going to just go into a wash for the shadows, which is going to be kind of a brownish green. I am mixing for it, so it might be off camera slightly. So it's a reddish green. So in addition to the watercolor pans, I am adding some extra paint on here as I go. And now this is going to give us the jaw, but I gotta draw very carefully. And the whole idea here is that you can reactivate the watercolor as you go, which is unique to watercolor. Can't do that with something like acrylic. So you better be pretty accurate with your drawing. Mark L, plein air on Saturday, life drawing on Monday. Nice. Yeah, I went to that painting group on Saturday. Ear is gonna fit somewhere about here. And leave a little room here for the light on top of the ear. No problem, MJ Doris. Thank you for joining. These streams are 3 hours. Let's go ahead and mix again. I know you can't really see it. I could probably mix here. Yeah, now you can see what I'm mixing. So we're gonna mix somewhat of a dark, but not completely black yet. A little bit of water. And now if we're saying that the ear was gonna fit somewhere there, now we can go ahead and put this shape here for where the hair is gonna fit. So what I'm finding out with all my studies with watercolor is that you can kind of layer them like a graphite drawing. And when I was a student many years ago, they would say to treat graphite like watercolor, assuming we knew much about watercolor, which at the time I didn't really. And we're just getting started with watercolor. This channel has mostly been about oil paintings, but I'm curious to continue to adapt with the other materials. See, that got too dark, but it's okay because that's gonna fade a little bit as it dries. So all of this can actually be that dark and it'll be fine. Making sure that I don't leave any gaps. Now I wanted that brownish color here first because we're gonna need that for the lights. And as we found out last time, you can actually go into these lighter values and add them over top of the dark, and it actually works. So that gives me a little bit more confidence with this. Hey Alberto, welcome. Thank you for the comment. Now here's where you gotta be careful. Leave a little more room than you think you need, because this is where watercolor can go really wrong. So leaving a little more room than I think I need is ideal. That is, I could make that forehead a little bit taller if I wanted to. That would be okay. Of course, Alberto, thanks for joining. This is going to be a very different kind of look to the watercolor. Closer to, I'm assuming, what it's supposed to look like if we treat it with academic sensibility. And yeah, be careful with these edges. So this is where it can go really wrong. But not so bad though. It's really not so bad. As long as you leave some extra space here, it'll be fine. Okay, so now we're going to use the yellow ochre. Mix right about there. Smallest mixing space in the world. Right there. Barely fits the brush. And here's where I work lighter than need be. Lighter than I need to. So let's add some of this color just to make it lighter. So things are going to get vastly different here. So we're going to draw with shapes just like you would with oil paint or acrylic, with the exception of we're working lighter and then adding the darks. With the other materials, you could pretty much just go straight in. But tomato, apples, oranges, it's all really about what you're comfortable with. Concavity of the eye socket. See how I said I left a little more room there than I need? We're getting the shape of the glabella there. Eye socket shape. Eye will eventually fit there. Same over here. Leaving some of the light there because we will paint the sclera. And that value is totally fine. We're going to end up making it more blue as we go. Now that's good enough for that placement. Now we're going to walk our way down. Nose is going to land somewhere about here. Working lighter allows us to make corrections once things get darker. So say that the placement of the nose is a little bit too low or too high. Well, then this will become a halftone, or it will become part of the shadow. Now we're going to use this to draw the edge of the nose. So about here. Going to add more water to the brush. More of our yellow ochre mixed with some of whatever this is. Just a light yellow. And in the future, I'm actually going to mix my own colors for these pans and just let them sit. Let them dry over time and use that. Okay, so the edge of the nose, if I draw vertical, the edge of the nose lands right there. This curves in a tad bit more, then out, like that. This curves in. Keeping the shapes really simple is key here. Walk our way down. This will give us the placement for the mouth. Working lighter gives us the chance to fix things if something goes wrong. Like I usually say, keep your shape simple and easy, such that when the time comes to make changes, those changes are simple and easy to manage. Well, in watercolor, keep your values light, such that when the time comes to make changes, you can cover your tracks. So starting off really light. Okay, now, interestingly enough, we can go in with the same exact mixture, and just by the nature of watercolor, when we layer on top of it again, it's gonna get darker by default. So you see, I'm mixing the same thing on the palette, and it's gonna get darker by default. So we're gonna start now solidifying the angle between the eyes. So pretty much right there. See how it just gets darker on its own? I don't want there to be too much water, so I won't add any more water to the brush for now. That amount of water is plenty. Highlight for the upper eyelid is not going to be that bright to begin with, so we're okay to leave it the way it is. And now, concavity of the eye socket. And now we're starting to put something a tad bit darker for where the eyebrows eventually gonna fit. And you can reactivate the watercolor, so it's okay if you make the shape too sharp. Hey, Francisco. Watch out for when these start to drip. That started to drip there, so I made some adjustments. See how it starts to get slightly darker on its own? Eye is gonna fit somewhere about here. So vastly different from the way we started last time. And the nose seems to be all right. So now let's go with something a little bit darker for the eyebrows. Pretty much that greenish color that we used on the hair. Still lighter than we eventually want to go. But again, keep your shapes simple and easy, such that when the time comes to make changes, those changes are simple and easy to manage. In watercolor, also keep your shapes lighter so that when the time comes to make changes, you can cover your tracks. Okay, so we're gonna let that be for a little bit. Now we'll go right back into these layers here before too long. And right away, this is something that is going to be important, that we push the darks before we start to add anything here. Pretty much just the same as working with any of the other materials. So again, we're going to add a pretty dark, and that's really dark. That's good. Now you see how much range we have. Now for the ear, I'm going to use that same reddish color that we used in the beginning. Now we're covering the light. So don't worry too much about these middle tones. We're actually going to use more of the tubed paint to cover that as we go. But we're going to want to build some of the subtleties on the face. So I'm going to use this reddish color with a little bit of this yellow. So it's going to get somewhat towards the orangey. And so it's water. Now these are going to be larger washes of value. Starting about there. Now more water. Larger washes. And that's eventually going to get more towards the green as we move down. Like I said, don't worry about that plane change. We're going to address that later on with more of the thick watercolor. So this is a single wash, big wash though. Now what's nice about it is because it is red, we can use it for the lips. Now before too long, we're gonna go and sketch in the glasses. Just like with any of the other materials. I always suggest that you hint at them pretty early on. Now it's definitely going to interact with the washes that we add, but that's okay. We're gonna keep the lights rather open and focus more with shadow. Now here's where I definitely have to measure. This should be a little bit smaller on the other side. So right about there. And I can go in with the background later and fix it if I make a mistake. So you always gotta think about what you can do to correct any mistakes as you add more layers. And that goes down here. The eyebrow is actually going to raise, which is fine because we can use that layer as some of the dark lights. That's all right if it's not perfect. Okay, so we'll paint in and out of that area, but it's good enough for now. Now, same stuff that we did there, but to the other side. We can actually use some of it to start to render out the nose. So remember, anyone have any questions, please feel free to ask. Use the water to create a wash. Gives us a little gradation there. Same concept now for the glabella. Through experience, you'll know how much water to use. Anyone that follows me on Instagram, yesterday I posted a picture of a practice painting in which I used the same technique. So I just figured it out yesterday. So seems to be doing all right thus far. I think the first one we did, I may have done something similar, but I wasn't quite as familiar with the layering. And this is only the third here on YouTube. The second one, I spent a lot of time with the drawing, but then I lost some of the jawbone and I wasn't able to get it back. So that's why I started pretty as exacting as I could with that. Hey Sadie, glad you joined. Yeah, I'm over here with the watercolors trying to figure out how to use them. Were you just at Karen's class just now? So start off every plane. You want to start off a little bit thicker and then let the wash kind of run out like that. Oh, cool. You're just at Karen's. Yeah, Sadie is art student at MICA, Maryland Institute College of Art. Did Karen give you a hard time in class? She always has been kind of strict, I think, especially with drawing. Yeah, so this area, don't worry about it. This is going to be done with the thicker paint, with the tubes. I'm going to cool this off with the green. Finishing the third week of your live models. Oh, the art school days. Definitely keep track of your friends over the years. Such great experiences in school. Friday will be Grace's painting. That will be in pastel. And I did a little vote for YouTube to see if they wanted oil pastel or soft pastel. So right before I start the stream, I'll check what the voting went like for the pastels. Oh yeah, I'll send Grace the image. Hey Marco, the quality's pretty good with these watercolors. I'm using a pretty cheap set, just like a artist loft, but my more important colors, like the yellow ochre, It's not actually yellow ochre, but it might as well be. It says, it just says Terra Sienna, raw sienna. It just says raw sienna, but it pretty much is like a yellow ochre. You can see how much I've gone through. Pretty good. Can't complain with these. The nice thing about watercolor is it's so um, low maintenance. Let's mix the dark here. It's so low maintenance. But you make one mistake with the darker value and it's over. So that's why I'm careful with this accent here. Very careful with that accent. Tear duct. From tear duct to tear duct gives you the angle between the eyes. Now we can put in more of the accents. Yeah, Sadie, I think I would really like to see Karen do one of these watercolors on one of those Saturdays. The first couple ones that I did were so off. Like as a predominantly oil painting based artist, transitioning into watercolor is very difficult. But I think the reverse is probably easier, going from watercolor to oil. Although I don't know too many people that have gone from watercolor to oil paint. Yeah, yeah, Sadie, it is definitely very different. Yeah, when I was your age, I did go to Micah as well for. I think I told you all last time, but I was doing only oil painting 24/7. Of course, you were there a sophomore year, but I had already left after my freshman year. So at your age, I was at a place called Studio Incominati in Philadelphia, which is an academy kind of setup, like an atelier. But all we did there was oil paint and charcoal. Mainly charcoal. But at your age, I was already obsessive over painting. But yeah, it's definitely great to find what your passion is when you're young. Yeah, so what's the longest you've worked on an art piece? I remember to paint one study for about a month and a half. I worked on one particular painting for 2 years, but not like every day, 2 years. Um, Maybe like, I don't know, 3 months, like work on it, like at least once a week, and then take like another month off, think it's finished, and then return to it later, kind of thing. But yeah, 2 years. And I could still return to it and adjust things. Yeah, you want to get really confident with your long-term studies because they will benefit your short-term. Your short-term studies will you already know, benefit the long-term, vice versa. The better you get at what you can do in 1 hour improves on what you can do in 10 minutes. What you can do in 10 minutes improves upon what you can do in 1 minute. The wet on wet technique, APG Gomez art, with watercolor, kind of. I mean, what we did there, but I will say wet on wet technique with watercolor. Man, you gotta be fast. I don't think I'm fast enough yet with watercolor to do that. We can start to use this for the ear. Yeah, so any watercolor aficionados that are here, definitely let me know. Feel free to let me know if you think I'm doing something vastly wrong with the watercolors. You know, as I've only been doing watercolors for not even like a couple months yet. So, very open to suggestions. See how much we're focusing on the shadows and the dark lights. You mean wet the paper completely and apply watercolor? No, I've never done that. Definitely worth a try. I'm not sure if I want to do that to the 100% cotton paper, but the cheap one will probably buckle over. See how we're working around the glasses? So I always, being someone that has worn glasses since the 5th grade, I don't like when people take your glasses off for a painting. Now we're gonna use a bluish gray as a sclera. And I typically like to start with the upper eyelid and then use what's left on that shape to just add a little bit of water to the brush and drag it down like that. So that gives me the value for the sclera. So let's do it again to the other eye. So add the dark to the eyelid. And we'll use some of it for the pupil, preserving that highlight. And now, pretty much just wipe the brush, add a little bit of water, just let it drag down. And that'll give you the value for the sclera. Now we can go back to our original mixtures. That kind of greenish pinky brown. A little bit of water. A tad bit warmer. So our art history trivia will be after the subtleties. So, or when we enter the subtleties. So we're not quite there yet. But after the first break, that's typically where we enter subtleties. So you have to have a soft touch with those gradations. You could say we're already entering the subtleties a little bit. But now with these little mini washes, we'll be able to control the value range as well as the edges. Again, oil painting for 16 years before attempting watercolor. So there's definitely a learning curve. I do recommend everyone explore. Each material teaches you something different that you may not figure out if you're only doing the same material for forever. It's frustrating, and you have to let your pride go. Don't worry too much about the ego and just explore. Five minutes till the break. Yeah, we're definitely in subtlety land now. So when we return, we'll start subtle trivia, which will be a lot of repeat questions because, to be honest, I haven't had too much time to read or watch documentaries. Hey, PG Gomez. Oh, good. I'm glad you like it. I mean, it's risky. Definitely risky to start without a drawing, but it's well worth the effort. But had I placed the mouth here, or here, or had I placed the eye here, it's over. And yeah, so there's definitely some challenges involved in it. Sadie, yeah, oil paints are definitely, I'd say, more friendly than watercolor for portraiture. If you want to do portraiture, but yeah, having done oil painting for 16 years, I will say oil paint's higher maintenance than watercolor. The whole thing about the mineral spirits, to clean the brush, and the cost, the paints are more expensive. Of course, nowadays we have water mixable oil paint, and to anyone that's gonna go the water mixable route, just stick with Cobra Talons. That's I'm not sponsored by them, so maybe in the future, but that's really gonna be the best for you. Okay, so we've got 3 minutes till the break. That is usually the time where I go and add something to the background. I don't know if I want to add anything to the background. I know I will. I've been kind of hiding from it, but I'll just go ahead and paint the rest of the shoulders in here. So usually I like to take this time to paint something that I don't want to have to wait to dry, but because of the way we're working, that's not really an issue. And I don't like when things meet perfectly, so I'm gonna leave a little gap there just for composition's sake. Now we get some pretty nice watercolor effects down here. Those are always nice. Get those effects. Now, of course, we still want to be paying attention to the drawings. So shoulder's gonna have to go up a little more. So the composition is more important than the accuracy. As long as, well, this looks like her shoulder might be turned. But as long as it's still accurate. Now let's go before the break. Just add some of this darker color. Let this dry. Anyone that may be new, during the break, I usually play a video of my Shiba Inu. Everyone that's been here for a while, you're probably already sick of it. But I'm going to play the video of Hugo, my Shiba Inu. I'm going to take a break, and I will return in just a couple minutes. Don't go anywhere unless you absolutely have to. Alrighty then. Apologize for the delays. Now we can go in with the background. And the reason I didn't go into the background to let it dry is that there's some drawing things here that I need to do before going into that. So I want to be a little more cautious about my drawing. So for one, I'm going to use the this lighter color. Like the water on the edge here. I'm going to most likely extend this outwards. Like that. So like I said, it is, you can reactivate it. So there, we can fix our little drawing stuff. And also add some definition. All right, so let's mix up a green. I'm gonna have to get more of that color. So I'm gonna use green and a little bit of burnt umber. And we can start our trivia. Subtlety trivia. Anyone want to play subtlety trivia? It's a game where at the end of the stream, 10 minutes before the end of the stream, we count our points. So everyone that answers correctly first gets a point. I'm going to make the background darker than what you see in the picture. Yeah, so anyone that answers correctly first gets a point. And haven't had much time to look up other questions, so most of these will be repeats. If you've been here a while, then you'll know the answers, so it'll be mainly about how fast you can type. So art history trivia and just some trivia about me. So it's somewhat related to YouTube. All right, so what was the name of the Impressionist painter that worked with mostly dots of color? And I believe it was eventually called pointillism. And if that one's too difficult, I can ask another one. Although a simple Google search is probably all you need. Impressionists that worked mainly with dots. Their first name starts with an S. I think. Either that or I forgot. There you go. Viking Boy gets the first point. First point of the night goes to Viking Boy. All right. Let's see. What was the name of the painter that had 15 kids? Or we could say around 15 kids. Can't know for sure. These are all going to be mostly repeat trivia questions. We may not have enough people watching live to have a chat or a trivia. Well, we'll see where everyone's at. All right, P Gomez art. That was correct. Vermeer. Next question. So that point goes to P Gomez art. Gets a point. Next question. Where in France did Monet have his studio in which he painted mainly in his garden? Where in France did Monet have a studio where he painted mainly in his garden? These documentaries? Oh, just YouTube, where we tend to find everything. I think they're all BBC documentaries. Oh, Grace, Andrew P. Gomez art simultaneously, but it looks like Andrew B. got that point. So Viking Boy gets another point. All right. Another point goes to Viking Boy. Next question here. This is going to be an easy one. So who's going to be the fastest to type? So whoever's the fastest to type will get this one. What's the name of the artist that painted the Night Watch? So whoever's the fastest could also be who may have the fastest internet. All right, point goes to Grace. Rembrandt is the artist that painted the Night Watch. So very close, P. Gomez. Very close. And don't worry about the sharpness of the hairline. That's something that we can adjust as we go. Okay. Next up. What was the name of the artist that painted El Jaleo? So who can type the fastest? What was the name of the artist that painted El Jaleo? El Jaleo. Hey, Lewis Wolf. Let's see. Well, thanks for joining after such a long time. Oh, so in your family, people used to do watercolor as well. Cool. Very difficult material, I'll say. The shadow for the nose. I mean, for the glasses. I'll put that in. And of course, the nose is not as round as I had before. So I use that shadow for the glasses as a way to add a value in there to fix that. Let's see. No worries, Lewis. El Jaleo. Well, there may be a Vicelli that painted El Jaleo. The one I was thinking of was by a different artist. Then again, that may be correct. So we'll wait about a minute, see if anybody responds with the name that I was thinking of. Oh, cool. They have a museum. All right. P. Gomez. Yes, Sargent. The very, very popular Sargent. El Jaleo. Yes, a very popular Sargent painting. Okay, so point goes to P. Gomez, and apologize, Grace. I'm not sure who the other artist is, but I'm sure they did paint in El Jaleo. But there's plenty more questions, more trivia that I know you will have no problem with. Okay. So next up, so we add a little bit more for the glasses. All right, next up, who painted? Oh, this is gonna be another quick one. Another quick one. Who's the fastest to type? Who painted the milkmaid? Okay, so the mouth could have went up a little bit, but I'm not going to chase that. Not gonna chase that. That would require things that are beyond the scope of my capabilities. Now I could move the nose down a tad bit, but then it will make the nose look too long, so it's kind of at an awkward point where I can't really move much with it, so where I'm just gonna let that be. But I am aware of it. Now we're gonna go back to the shadow for the neck. That's gonna need another layer. Mix up a reddish brown with the green. I thought he was the singer. That's funny. Yeah, that would have been a more appropriate name if Sargent was a singer. So a point goes to Grace. It was Vermeer. Very close, Lewis. Very close. Okay. Next question. Let's see. Another repeat question. What disease killed Manet? Okay, historical paint color. I mean, not that I know much about it, but from what I do know, I can do some trivia on the little that I do know. Yes, it was syphilis that killed Manet. Oh, okay, you know a lot of historical colors. Okay. All right. What was the name of the red pigment that the term minimalist comes from? Which red pigment is attributed to the word minimal? Oh, so not quite vermilion or cinnabar. Not quite those. Minium. Yes, minium. And that I heard that story from a Robert Liberace video. Okay, next up. So that point goes to Grace. Minium was the correct answer. Another points to Grace. Next, historical pigment question. Which historic pigment was known to fade and look pink over time? Which historic pigment was known to fade and look pink over time? Oftentimes used for glazing. And the answer goes to Lewis. Alizarin Crimson. And actually, yes, Vermilion would also fade over time. But the one that would definitely look really pinky is Alizarin Crimson. So point goes to Lewis. And Bob Roth, yeah, I think you're right. I think he used it too. Yeah, most of the Lizarins we have now, I think, are Alizarin permanent. It might be kind of difficult to find the true alizarin anymore. I don't know why anyone would, but I mean, but you can get it from natural pigments. Which, next question for 1 point. Which historical pigment used arsenic? Which historical pigment used arsenic? Oh, we gotta be very careful with this. And usually about now is when the paper starts to buckle a little bit. Yeah, I would assume it is discontinued. Well, it could be. Excuse me. So the question is which emerald green, really? That had arsenic? Well, most of these I'm getting from natural pigments, so could be multiple answers, I guess. I'll use this yellow, which will actually cool this down a little bit. Odd enough. That cools it down. Sadie, no, I don't do anything different with the paper. I probably should, but haven't been doing watercolor as long as I've been oil painting. I find that it does like it folds, and then after however many layers, it kind of just goes back to normal. So yeah, that's why these streams aren't so much educational as they are kind of more like podcasts. So these are somewhat podcast like sessions. But no, you can just start right away with the paper as it is. Just work directly onto it. That's what I like to do. And the paper I'm using is 100% cotton. I actually need to buy more. I've only got 3 left. This is what I'm using. So 100% cotton. There we go. Orpiment. That's the one. Right? Yeah. It was wild that they had that. If you dampen the back, it may reduce the buckling. Well, it could, yeah, another thing I could experiment with. I'm open to the experiments. Though it doesn't really bother me because, like, towards the end, when there's more layers, it kind of evens out. That's something I've noticed is that it does even out towards the end. So emerald green and London purple had arsenic. That's crazy. All right, so Lewis also gets that point then. Or whoever mentioned those that have arsenic in them, let me know and you get a point. Or just give yourself the point. Or you can give yourself the point. Because I definitely shouldn't be the one hosting materials trivia. But this is all just for fun. The shadows should get a tad bit longer. So this is one thing I don't like about the light at Karen's place, is that it tends to like give that dark rectangle, and I don't like painting a dark rectangle. So I typically turn it into a triangle. The light, by the way, is a north-facing window. A north light, so this is taken under daylight. So there, we turn it into a triangle. Okay, so point goes to Lewis and Grace for that one. I didn't know that emerald green and London purple had arsenic. Jeez. That's kind of tough. Okay. So next, trivia question for 1 point. It's going to be yet another repeat, as Yupari doesn't know much about art history and materials. What was used, and this could be a multiple point or multiple type answer, just like the arsenic one, but what was used to create lead white? What was used to create lead white in the past? For 1 point. Many people can actually get this point. There's only one process that I know of that I read about to create lead white. Some people actually create it on their own. I don't see the, like, just for historical reasons, that's cool, but I don't really see much of a point in doing that. Though I've never used, well, this can be another question later. Let's see. Kind of like the variety PR 101 with arsenic. Oh man, we're getting all kinds of toxic. Yes, PW1, but how did they create? Okay, vinegar is one of them. Lime is also another way. And yeah, this point can be shared. Lime is one way, and so is vinegar. So you can now both get that point. And then I'll talk about why that is, to my knowledge. Of course, Louis. Yeah, definitely. Feel free to answer away. Like I said, this is not so much of an education in that sense. It's more of a podcast kind of. I'm here painting, and we're just kind of spending time. Two types of lead carbonate and old lace. All right, so here's. All right, so everyone that sounded somewhat informed about that gets the point. Now, the way that I was told was that it was metal foils that were basically corroded with, yes, with vinegar or with anything that's somewhat acidic. People would also oftentimes go to the restroom on these coils, and you know, to speed up basically the rate at which the metal would go bad. And then it would turn into this kind of flaky thing, and people would shake the flakes, and that's where you get the term flake white for lead white, is from that. That's at least what I was taught. And that's why you have the term flake white, or another one is called stacked lead white. I've never used stacked lead white, which is with the traditional process with the foils. Yeah, Creminence white is another name for it. What historical color would you want to know first? Yeah, go ahead. So historical color I'd want to know about first would be cobalt blue. I think from what I was told that's a historical color. And I think it's used in some stuff like batteries or whatever. Cobalt blue. All right, so we'll move into some more of, I guess, my territory of knowledge. Let's go to an anatomy question. Anyone that studies anatomy of the face will be able to answer this quickly. And it's something I asked before, but what is the plane right in between the eyes here, right above the nasal bone? What is this plane? So right above, this is the root of the nose. What is this plane here called? So Louis, your cobalt blue is a metal treated in a way to make it blue. Hey Lisa, say you prefer watercolor painting for still life as opposed to portraiture. Oh, cool. Grace got that one first. That point goes to Grace. That's the glabella. Yeah, I like watercolor for like how difficult it is. But yeah, I think for still life it would be pretty good. I can see that. All these little mini washes here. Thanks, Louis. Thanks for the information. The third eye. Oh man, that's a good one. Thanks, Louis. We'll be here tomorrow with oil painting. In case you can join. You're always welcome. So yeah, at least I should get a point for the comedy, the third eye. Yeah. Uh, since there's only 22, there's not too many people to have like a kind of like a quick paced trivia like we've had before. I will open up trivia to art jokes. Whoever has a joke that makes me laugh will get a point. In addition to the questions. All right. So, next up. Oh, here's an interesting one. About the school that I went to in Philly. Not so much art history, but I guess history of learning these kind of techniques. What is the name of the underpainting that was taught at Studio Incaminati? with the first name called Duo. So if you look up Studio and Cominati and type Duo, there's only one word left to complete this type of underpainting. Very kind of unique to Incominati, and people that study it at Incominati kind of use this type of start. That's why learning watercolor is so difficult, because that type of start was just way different than what can be done with watercolor. Yeah, of course, Lisa, that was good. Oh, okay. What is ultramarine? In the name itself, an ultramarine. An ultramarine. I don't know about that one. This is more of a dad joke. You'll come up with some jokes. All right, next question for 1 point. Oh, look at that. Grace got that one. Duotone. Yes, duotone. Yes, that kind of start is with burnt sienna, white, and ultramarine blue. And it's called duotone, I think mainly because Nelson would call it duotone, but it's not two tones. So the name itself is a little bit off. Oh wow, that was quick. Well, the break is approaching. That was fast. I must be painting really slow. The duotone. You have a lot of dad jokes. Why did the pencil go to school? It wanted to improve its leadership skills. Okay, that one was good. It's lead, because lead and lead are kind of spelled the same. That's okay. That one will pass. Thou shall pass. So P. Gomez gets a point for that. There's a lot of jokes about pencils in the art world, so I guess we gotta get ready for those. And I guess we should add another. Yeah, the white of the paper is kind of distracting now. This is taking away from this, so I'm gonna have to cover that because we're gonna go full values pretty soon. All is not as it seems when you get into full values. If you leave the tone, the white paper, you have to leave it in such a way that it works with the composition, depending on what type of painting you're trying to do. Pennsylvania. Oh, here we go with the jokes. I don't know about that one. Too sketchy. Oh, that's funny. Where did vampires go to buy the arts? Too sketchy. But no, I didn't laugh at that one. Ultramarines do the same as Space Force, except in the water. Oh, because they're like the Marines, but they're Ultramarines. Okay, I get it. Ah, but I had to think about that one though. I had to think about that one. All right, let's put in another trivia question. Repeat has a lot to do with Nelson Shanks. A lot to do with Nelson Shanks. How many colors did Nelson Shanks have on his palette? He was very specific about using a lot of color. How many colors did Nelson Shanks have on his palette? Oh, no worries, Lisa. I'm a tough one when it comes to like art jokes. I am a tough one when it comes to art jokes. I laugh at myself. Yeah, let's knock that background out. Taking too long. Hey, Dank, that was a good try there. Good try. Grace 17. Not Grace. Grace said 22. Craftomatic said 17. The answer is 22. 22 colors is the original Studio Incominati color palette. In case anyone didn't know, which is actually part of the picture that you see. That's such an old picture, I need to change it. The picture, like when you're waiting for me to go live, I set up my palette similar to that many eons ago. 22. Yes, 22. But oil painting is such a different animal. You can do things like that with oil paint. Watercolor you can as well, from what I'm finding. But yeah, let's get this background knocked out. It's pretty much the same background that we saw last week. I mean, it's from the same studio. This is actually kind of closer to what it actually looked like. Okay, next question. For 1 point, art history. You're gonna know a lot about the Impressionists because there's a lot of good documentaries on the Impressionists. And this is gonna come from the Impressionist TV show. Or not TV show, sorry, BBC. What was the name of Monet and Renoir's friend that was killed in the war? Basically, for anyone that's seen that documentary called The Impressionist. Apparently, from what the documentary says, this guy really helped Monet when he was in tough financial times, when he had his first kid. Lisa, I do color studies in oil paints. Yes, you mean like the Incominati? I haven't done any this year, but I do have a lot of training in color study, and the way that it was taught at Incominati, I had already been taught that before I went there. My first teacher, my first painting teacher, this is how lucky I was, how lucky I am. My first teacher, his name is John Eversberger, and he was teaching color study where you do outdoor still life, just like Henry Hinchy. So that was my introduction to painting. So I can't really unlearn it. Every plane change is a color change. Paint the color of the light in relation to the color of the shadow. All those things. That's how I was introduced to painting. So I can't really like unlearn it. But I did so many of those throughout the years. It's just the way that I think, especially when I'm painting from life. And it's really something that you have to be started with palette knife. Because with a brush, there's so much stuff that can happen, like on the brush, that you don't necessarily need the palette knife. Oh, okay, we got one. No, it wasn't Manet, Lisa, close. It was Basile. I think his first name was Frederick Basile. Yes, he was the one that unfortunately was killed in the war. In that show, The Impressionists. So that point goes to Grace. And it looks like it's that time. We're gonna go ahead and take another break. And as usual, we're gonna let that dry. And this is already starting to dry anyway. Okay, so we're gonna take another break. And hopefully you're not too tired of the video of Hugo. I know eventually I'll make it. But you know what I'm actually gonna do? During break time, I'm gonna start to play videos of basically paintings that I'm gonna be selling. All of these, I'm gonna be selling all of them. So I'm gonna be bringing my Etsy shop back. So you'll have a chance to start collecting these paintings. We've got enough of them now. We can start selling them off. So that's going to be the future of break time. Of course, Hugo will always be in the videos in some way. So yeah, we'll let that dry. And remember, we can go back into the hair with the yellow and it starts to look like we're adding light paint to like white paint to it, but even though we're not. So that's why I'm gonna let it just dry like this. All right, so I'm gonna go on a break, and this question is going to be for 3 points. This is gonna be a big one. This is gonna go for 3 points. Whoever can type the fastest. And that is going to be the same question you got before, but with a little twist. So that is going to be name five artists, oil painters, 5 oil painters throughout history with the first name John. 5 oil painters throughout history with the first name John. And we'll take a break and we'll be back in just a couple minutes. Don't go anywhere unless you absolutely have to. Alrighty then. Let's continue on with this painting. This will be the last hour for this one. So let's see who got the point here. Also, let me know if you can hear me. Sometimes the audio can be a little bit tough to gauge for me. Let me know if you can hear me. Okay, so Lisa Sargent, the only one you can think of. No worries. Okay. Oh, good. The audio's working. So Grace Scott Sargent, DeMartin, my teacher, John William Waterhouse, Constable, John Collier. Not sure who I know. I don't know if I know that one, but yes, that is correct. Grace now has 3 points. All right. Okay. So next up for 1 point. Shall we do pigments? Yeah, done a lot of pigments. Let's see here. Oh, okay. This one might take some remembering. What was the name of the guy that Caravaggio killed in a duel? What was the name of the guy that Caravaggio killed in a duel? For 1 point. No worries, Lisa. You have Ranuccio Tomasoni. That was his name before Caravaggio ended him. So weird. That yellow ends up looking more blue. Kind of odd how that works. All right, so that point goes to Grace. At least from the documentary, I think the reason he killed him was he just called him out or something silly. That's a good question. Who knows the exact answer? Not that we can know for sure, but why did Caravaggio kill the guy? Well, I guess the question would be why did Caravaggio challenge the guy to a duel? Which I don't think you're supposed to kill someone in a duel back then, so that was kind of a bad form. That was kind of a bad form from Caravaggio's end. I did say this part would be done mostly with thicker paint. So we're gonna add some more paint here. The yellow ochre. We're gonna go to town with that. First off, we need to make sure the shadow is dark enough. So that's a safe assumption, Grace. He did get into one fight over a lady friend. But I don't think it's the one where he killed the guy. Now here's where the art jokes can come in. That might be beyond the scope of my knowledge there. So this is why we need my teacher friend Karen Warshall to be here. She knows way more about art history. Yeah, that one we may never know. Yeah, so you're using thicker paint to get the curvature here. So pretty much wet into wet paint. And now we're getting this curves of the plane. Then we're gonna go back into the eye, but we're closing up, pretty much getting rid of the white of the canvas, or the paper. Careful with that. About a tennis match. Oh, that's right. I think it, yeah, I did hear it was about a tennis match or something. Some kind of something that was not worth killing someone over. Yeah, Caravaggio is not a guy you wanted to mess with. Okay, so I'm going in with this dark. And then I'm going to use the pink. Use lighter colors. See, so I'm using thicker paint for this. So here's where it gets tricky because we start to kill off the white of the canvas or the paper. I keep calling it canvas. This is where it gets real tricky. We got to save our highlight there. Okay, so in the BBC, was it BBC? I don't know. The Simon Schama documentary of Caravaggio. It was said that he taught his dog to do what trick? In that documentary, it was said that Caravaggio taught his dog to do a trick. What trick did his dog do? And it wasn't painting. So we're gonna let that dry, and then we're gonna go back into the shadow and work our way back up towards that direction. And now the eyes. It's weird. Looks very different on my screen. So pupil. Oh, that's a good one. Lisa. No, no, it wasn't Play Dead. That was a good one. You get a point for that joke. Lisa still gets a point because that made me laugh. Oh yeah, this is the cheek is totally not finished, but I want this layer to dry. So I've started putting in the layers that go up. But yes, yes, there's definitely a shape there that we need to add. This was a tough one. It's a very specific moment of that documentary where Simon says that he taught Caravaggio taught his dog to do that. That might be too specific, so we'll leave that as an open question and we'll move on. A little more of the red. All right. Lines that come down from the nose to the mouth. Yeah, this is well, I call it a smile line. She does have a slight smile. Oh, no worries. Yeah, I think part of it is due to the fact that I have the mouth too low, which tends to almost always be the issue that I have. And I can't really fix it without doing some kind of trickery. So I can lift somewhat. See this? I can somewhat lift it. And if I can lift it enough, I should be able to move the mouth up. But we'll see how much the paper allows me to do with it. How much the paper allows. All right, so question, and this is a very relatable one to me. Sargent says a portrait is a painting where there is what? Sargent quote. Okay, this is risky. We're in a risky territory here. So I know that I need to move this shape up. And I'm using the water to push this up. So I quickly will add that bottom value back. So this is very risky territory here. In order to fix this, type of red, upper lip. Yeah, yeah. Sargent said a portrait, so that point goes to Lisa. A portrait is a painting where there's little something wrong with the mouth. Correct. Make sure I follow that center line. So yes, the mouth needed to move up. And the watercolor allowed me to do that. Don't know if I moved it up too much. This is where a drawing in the beginning would have helped. But I think we're able to move it up. You're not You're not willing to try something new that may cost you everything. You may end up learning nothing. You have to try different things. Like I said, this is not something that I've actually ever done before. I've never moved a mouse in watercolor. So I have no clue. I had no clue that this would work, so I took a chance. But that's in order for me to get that shape for the mouth, or else it would just look completely off. Well, that's good to know that that's possible. Hey, Jonas. It's possible to move the mouth up. Not for the faint of heart. So we're using this little lift. Risky, but it looks like I was able to move it. So you can move things, but you've got to be pretty quick about it, I think. Had I let the paint sit a little bit longer, it may not have allowed me to move it. And then, of course, what you're going to have to do when you move one thing, you're going to have to adjust everything else around it. Thanks, Lisa. Well, at this point, it's more about getting the structure with that change, moving it up. So I'm learning about this just as much as you might be. You may have already known that this was possible, but I just learned that it is possible. You can move these things. These watercolors are a little more forgiving than I thought. The watercolors had mercy on me. This should be dry enough. Well, that was quite entertaining, I think. Could have ruined everything. Really, really really could have ruined everything. But I was able to lift that back up, and now the proportion's much closer to the true one. I hope. I'm not sure. I'm having trouble looking at my different screens. It looks really off on my computer screen, but it looks closer on my TV screen. I'm using a different monitor also. So glasses on her right side. A little too proud on her face. I don't know what that means. I just tried to make sure that the one on the left was a little bit smaller. Now they're kind of the same though. Thanks, Lisa. Ooh, man, that was tough. So I'm adding some red off camera. This is just a cheap. Well, it's not that cheap, but it's called Vermilion Hue. Of course, I don't want the real vermilion. I don't want any mercury on my hands. Not for me. Oh, I mean the frame against the right eye? Here? I guess that's probably why I didn't preserve the highlight for that. So we weren't able to preserve this highlight, though I can still subtract for it. And I guess I was able to. Crazy. I didn't think the watercolor would allow that. Oh, her right. Oh, well that's not even supposed to be this light. And yeah, it is right in front of her eye there. Oh, okay. I thought you meant our right. Yeah, I mean, there shouldn't really be much of it anyway showing. And I wasn't going to, at least I wasn't planning on leaving it like that. So glasses, you usually want to leave just a few little traces of, like that, a few little traces of light. So this will be the brightest area up here. Okay, now that we've somewhat fixed that, we'll go back towards the mouth. Yeah, so trivia was paused for a little bit because I have to actually think about how to correct. So we've only got 15 minutes, so we'll end the trivia early. I can't multitask that well. I gotta make sure that I fix that. That said, I think Grace probably got the most points. But we can tally up your points now. And this is gonna have to get thinner. Oh yeah, I got a lot of stuff that I don't think I'll be able to do in the next 15 minutes. So I'm gonna have to prioritize certain things like the shadow. Grace got 13. Yeah, resident experts. Yeah, I think watercolor may be too difficult for me to multitask this stage. Oil paint, no problem. Pastel, no problem. But I think acrylic and watercolor are the two more difficult ones for me to multitask. Which I think most of you would prefer that I focus on the painting anyway. Yeah, this is why I want to mix. I'm gonna pre-mix my own pans. Because this whole mixing thing takes a lot of time. Whose idea was it to do watercolor? Let me know whose idea was it. Use the yellow because it makes it cooler. Yeah, like Wednesday and Friday. Yeah, because I have the experience necessary for trivia to multitask with oil paint, but with watercolor, it is tough. Part of it's also I left the white of the canvas or paper up there. I may have waited too long to take that out. Looks like that on the photograph too. Yeah, the glasses. And a shadow for that. Yeah, watercolor is hard, but I think the biggest problem is the fact that I covered the whole thing. I'm gonna have to figure out kind of like a way to stylize it. Kind of like that study that I did that I posted on Instagram. It was perfect for this because I didn't need a background. Kind of an exaggerated shadow, but that'll work. Yeah, I'm not liking the way it looks on my computer screen. It's showing up really different on my computer screen. So I'll use this yellow. Should cool that down. I know there should be a cast shadow there, but I'd rather just put the shadow under and edit it. But I do like a challenge. The yellow is almost working like a white. But it's not white, it's yellow. You can see it on the pan. All right, we got 10 minutes. Yeah, take care, Hansel dog. We'll be back tomorrow. Yeah, this seems to always be the area with watercolor that that lifts a little bit. You can see it there. I'm not gonna touch it because last time I did, it didn't work well. I may need to buy a tube that's close enough to that. But yeah, to be honest, I think part of it is that I threw in the background. This watercolor doesn't lean itself really well to these kinds of finishes, at least at my skill level. Yeah, so this is proving to be really useful, the yellow. In cooling things down. Okay. So the great thing is that this lifts a little bit, so it allows me to erase cover up my mistakes. Oh, thanks, Giselle. And of course, thank you to the model Sadie. You can see how difficult it is to be a full-time artist. Although I do enjoy doing this. I enjoy the challenge. Yeah, the sclera is now a tad bit too dark. But yeah, with 6 minutes, there's not very much that I'll be able to do. So we'll do what we can. If I could, I would get some oil paint and like cover that right away. That would be ideal. But of course I can't do that. just the little point where the light of the paper is. Thanks, Jeanette. This is not an easy one. I wish I could stay longer to fix this, but I cannot stay longer. Put some red into this so that it doesn't look gray. Kind of just like with oil paint. Not much of a difference there in terms of the color. Oh, huh. Thanks, Cassell. I'm not really sure I'm at that level with watercolor. All right, all or nothing. That shape there. And I'm thinking I'm gonna risk it. I'm gonna put straight yellow ochre into that. I'm gonna have to use a dry brush. So fresh paper towel. Clean this off. Highlight on the right eye. I wouldn't be able to add it anymore on her right eye. Her right eye is here. The highlight's already there, so I'm assuming you mean our right. Alrighty. Straight up paint onto here. And I'm gonna have to shop for a specific color for this. I'm using pretty thick paint for this. The reason I'm doing that is because I know that it's going to lift. Oh, thanks. Oh, tough one. But yes, very thick paint, and I think that solved that. When in doubt, pretend it's not a watercolor. When in doubt, pretend it's not a watercolor. So that ended up working. And there was a specific spot right here where it was lifting. And I had that problem last week and I wasn't able to fix it. And it bothered me for like a whole 5 minutes afterwards until I forgot about it. And I remembered it today. Oh, there it is, the 3 hours. Very difficult. Very, very difficult. But we survived it. Could have been better. Could have been better. And sorry, Haley. I don't think, not Haley, Sadie. Sadie. Sadley. I didn't do that well. But there's always a learning experience from these. So it's always a win-win. So learning experience, big one, is that you can subtract to move the lip up. Had I known that in the beginning, I would have done that. But I took a chance towards the middle end of the painting, and it worked. So for future purposes, now we know that you can use the lift of the paint to move the mouth up. So that's the big takeaway from today, everyone. Watercolor does allow you to move the mouth up if you place it too high. So you can move it up if you make this too long, basically. So big learning experience. I regret nothing. It was a really good learning experience to do that. And we'll just let this be kind of dark. No, we won't. No, we won't. Yeah, this one, yeah. It does need something. Tricky. Tricky, tricky. But we did the best we could, and I'm definitely out of time now. Definitely out of time. So I'll ask if there are any last minute questions. And all in all, I think this went well. It was a good learning experience. It's the first time I've moved a mouse in watercolor. All in all, I think really good learning experience. So yeah, let me know if you have any last minute questions. Of course, tomorrow we'll be back with oil paint. Back to familiar territory. I will sign this one. Of course, my hair was blocking it, sorry. I just used the 24. Okay. So that is everything. It was a tough one. And I don't think it was the drawing, the fact that we didn't draw with it as much as I didn't know that I could use the lift of the paper to move that. I think that would have solved it if I had known I could move that up. That's why I was hesitant to put that in for so long. But it turned out all right. I can live with that. Hopefully, Sadie will like the picture. I'll take a picture of this, and then all of these paintings will be for sale at some point pretty soon. That's what we use the break time for. Thanks, Giselle. Thanks, Grace, Lisa, Jeanette. Okay, so that's all I got for you today. Remember, anyone that may be new, the schedule is Tuesday through Friday. Tuesday is watercolor. Wednesday is oil paint, Thursday is acrylic, Friday is pastel, and same time, 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So we typically go about 3 hours, 4 to 7. Once again, thank you all so much, and I will see you tomorrow.